My name is Nathaniel DeVary. I'm an artist currently living in East Somerville. I also do figure modeling throughout the year, and then off season I live off of commissions. So I grew up in Easton, Pennsylvania, kind of a conservative area. I was a church freak. I went to like church camp, Bible study. It was like all I knew. So it wasn't like, oh, like this is crazy town. Like, no, this is just was every day. Soon you figure out you're gay and you're like, oh, I'm not fitting into this mold that they're telling me that as I'm supposed to be fitting into. So I kind of was like, oh, let's just keep it a quiet to ourselves. I was told like, oh, conversion therapy can like fix you. It can like kind of like a restart a little bit, but going in willingly and like kind of wishing it would work. It didn't work. Well, I remained closeted all through high school, all through college. I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in Philly, and I learned like more of my own voice at the college. Like, this is my stage. I get to tell you, or I get to say what I want here. I did a series of paintings documenting my experience of growing up in church and wanting to be a part of it, but also like being told you're not supposed to be here. But it kind of helped me to untangle all the like harmful theologies that were kind of ingrained in me. When I met Jordan, he was the first person that was like, oh, I'm gay and I'm a pastor. And I was like, what?
Hi, my name is Reverend Jordan Marcel Harris. So I remember meeting Nate. I was working at Arch Street United Methodist Church. Right around the corner from Arch Street was the Reading Terminal Market.
So I worked at a produce stand called Highvine Brothers.
I looked over and I saw this cashier.
We did that thing where you catch eyes with someone, you're like, well, what? Oh, okay, so you're checking me out.
And I instantly fell in love. I started going back every day until I finally worked up the courage to give him my number.
Got the number, I was like, Hugh.
So Nate never called me. Yeah, plot twist.
And I lost the number.
Eventually I went off, this was the end of college, and I went off to seminary.
Months later, when I was cleaning my room, I found the number.
And randomly one day, he messaged me on Facebook. And then from there, we just kind of started messaging every day. One day, I just got this text message from Nate saying like, hey, there's something I really need to tell you.
I let him know, I'm like, just, I am gay, and because I didn't want it to be like a whole thing.
And I was so taken aback. And I was like, oh, yeah, me too.
And so it kind of was like a check for him. Oh, we are back here.
I had thought we were 3 steps ahead of where we really were.
So I know I was a loop-de-doop.
So yeah, now we're at Connection in East Somerville.
And it's like a dentist's office. Like, it's not a traditional church. It's like a church startup.
I think Nate and I were able to craft the kind of faith community we had hoped that we had growing up as kids.
And I think since it's so small, we see each other, and I think we all have church hurt. So we want to keep it a safe space for people to unfold and bond with you and be vulnerable and talk about like your past and your wishes and your dreams. Death is usually like a thing people try to avoid talking about or dealing with.
Beloved, the last time I stood in this pulpit at Marsh Chapel, it was about a year after my younger brother Jalen died. Marsh Chapel yesterday was it was a beautiful experience. It was very hard for me. I was able to talk about my brother's passing, not as a grieving person striving to explain the mysteries of death, rather as someone who still lives with grief, but who has learned to live with grief, and talking about how this is going to be an experience, that we all share. And beloved, in your pews at the ends there, you can see that there are paper leaves and markers. You are invited to share these around, to write the names of loved ones who have passed away in your life onto these leaves. And later in the service, we'll be invited to come forward and add their names to this sacred exhibit.
Having that deep connection to death and like watching family like cope with it or not cope with it, you're kind of like, okay, this is like an important thing. We should continue doing this, because I feel like death is usually like a thing people try to avoid talking about, because it comes at such a risk of being vulnerable and like letting go of control in a way. I think it's important for both of us to continue to allow ourselves to be vulnerable in this work.
and support each other as we kind of publicly strive to do things like theology and art, which are so interpretive, especially for artists like Nate, right? Nate is able to paint out his process, paint out his pain, paint out his anxiety, and also paint in his hope and his love and his joy.
And it's just like, yeah, taking time to like be crazy, make some art, see how it evolves. Art is wonderful, it's my lifeline. And then, yeah, that's all I have really. That's my spiel.